Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 Hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Omari Sanko for the second, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
And of course, we're blessed to always be joined by our producer, Wes Davenport. And if you're not listening to The Pin Down over on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube, you need to do that with him and Blake Silverman. Also join them live on NBA Draft Night. But today, guys, we have an exciting guest. This is somebody that I've just got to know recently. I've been on his podcast, a couple of them recently. We have a lot of fun. We have a great time. He is executive producer for The Athletic. He is host of Saturday Slam and Jam. He is host of Down the Dunk. He is host of OKC Dream Team. I thought I did a lot of podcasts. Andrew is making me look like a fool. Welcome, Andrew Schlecht, to the Pistons Pulse.
Thanks for having me, guys. A Pistons Pulse listener right here, so I'm pretty excited. I didn't know you guys. Sometimes I wondered if you guys did those off the top those reads live or not, but it sounds professional every single time. So I don't even know.
Well, that tells us that we could actually just record them and not do them anymore. So thank you for revealing that. We're starting the pod by like 20 seconds.
Andrew, the funny thing is, every time you say you listen to the Pistons Pulse, in my head, I go, no, he doesn't. There's no way he actually listens to a Pistons podcast. And it's nothing against you. It's just like, why would Andrew want to tune into a Pistons podcast?
I'm a sicko, man. I love the league. I love team building. Mostly, look right here. These pods were played. You can even see it on.
This is amazing.
You're a hardcore podcast guy.
Okay. I love it.
Before we proceed, Bryce, happy Father's Day.
Oh, appreciate it. Andrew as well.
Andrew, are you a father? Happy Father's Day to you too, Andrew.
Thank you.
I'm the one here who is not a father. Well, Wes isn't either, but I'm not a father, but I'm happy for you guys for being fathers. Hope you guys had good Father's Day.
Here's what I said on Game Theory. At the end of the day, everybody has a male role model in their life, and I'm sure you and Wes are contributing in that way in somebody's life already. And so to me, I said it on Mother's Day as well. If you're that or whoever those male role models are in your life, make sure you reach out. You know, I know we're a day behind now, but I know I text more than just my own father yesterday because we all have people beyond that. Give Wes a hot second. He'll get there.
He is married, so that's a leg up.
Yeah. We got to find Omari. Omari, I think you're the most eligible bachelor in Detroit. Did I see that in a magazine or on Twitter recently?
Yeah, send it to me. I haven't seen that. Send it to me. I want to see that. I'm sure you're saying about me.
So Andrew had been telling me how much he loves team building and roster building and just talking about it. It's like, you got to come on the pod. This is what we are doing right now. Obviously, Detroit is one of the most fascinating test cases to do this. So we're going to talk team building first. We'll get Andrew's thoughts on the Troy Weaver era, what went right, what went wrong, why didn't it turn out like OKC, and then we'll do some NBA draft. And then because Andrew made me look like a fool with his trivia game on his podcast, we're going to bring him on here. We're going to play Sheet or Sham, your guys' favorite game, and I'll probably look like a fool on my own podcast as well. So Andrew, let's start off with the Pistons. Let's start off just over the last few years as an outsider, somebody that's watched this. What have been your thoughts as you watch the Detroit Pistons go over the last 3 or 4 years and try to somehow build something out unsuccessfully?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that you just haven't gotten as much of Cade Cunningham as you would have hoped, because in order to like actually build something, you need a little bit of continuity. And for Cade to not play basically his second year, I think that hurt the Pistons probably more than anything, because it's so hard to find out what you have when guys don't play. And so he played 62 last year. You still wish you could get to that like 70, 75 game mark to really see what you have. And then, boy, you just don't really know what else. Like, I think that's the biggest problem with all of this. Like, these are all like high level guys that you feel like you know because you watch them like throughout the draft process. But once they get to the league, things change really fast. And so, like, is Jaden Ivey a starting level guard? Is he a bench guard? I don't know. Is Jalen Duren? And Jalen Duren's still so young. It's so hard to figure out exactly what he is. And I'm sure that there's a lot of Pistons fans that are ready to turn on this guy already. But like, do you give him like the freedom there? The problem with the biggest problem with the Pistons that I see is that it all starts at the top. It's with the management, and it's with the coaching, it's with the ownership. Like, teams that are bad stay bad because of those guys, typically. It's not typically just the players. Like, you can do a bad job of picking players, sure, but if like Isaiah Stewart has a 12-year career in the NBA. Is anybody going to be surprised? Like, that's an NBA player. And Marcus Sasser, probably the same thing. I think that guy can play. Cade is obviously going to be a starting level player. Jalen Duren is going to make it in the league, at least for a long time, just because of his physical attributes. So you're telling me that the players are the problem? I think it starts at the top. I think there's obviously been rumors about the way that decisions are made within the Pistons organization, that there's not a total alignment there that exists. There's a huge problem. And then I don't know how you guys feel about Monty Williams, but when you look at young teams that are progressing, even look at the Rockets. Look at how the Rockets made a jump. One, they made through free agency, certainly. You got Fred VanVleet in there, Dylan Brooks. Those definitely helped. But when they changed the coaching staff, I think that's probably the biggest jump that they could have made. And so the Monty Williams thing is a problem, in my opinion. I think it's something that they need to take a hard look at this year. And now, if I'm the Pistons, I know they have tons of cap space. I know they have ways to get better this summer. Don't do it. Like, don't get better now. Do the most Pistons thing ever to get better get better in a significant way this summer, get themselves to the middle, and then miss out on this next draft class. You know, I think, and I don't know how they'll do this, but I think it's so important for them to remain patient right now. You have new management in, evaluate the coaching staff, who's a part of the core. Cade Cunningham, yes, put him part of the core. I think he's going to be a really good player. Is he a top 25 player in the league? Like, maybe he could be that. Great, hang on to him. Everybody else up for full evaluation on who's going to be on the roster. Coaching staff, the same thing. Get yourself if you can get a top 5 pick in next year's draft, do that. And then I would say evaluate from there. Like, give Trajan Langdon a year to really kind of figure this out. Because I don't think you figure this out in a matter of weeks. I don't think you figure this out before the draft. I don't think you figure this out in an off season. I think organizationally, from top to bottom, you have to really figure out who stays, who goes. I think you have to give this a little bit of time, which is probably not what Pistons fans want to hear. It's like, it's been too much time already. And 14 games. 14 games is wild. But I think because it's 14 games, you need to actually take the time to do the job. Because if you just fill it with free agents that are good, you can get to the easiest thing to do in the league is to get to the middle. That's the easiest thing to do. And the hardest thing to do in the league is to get out of the middle. Because once you get there, you better have a plan of how to leapfrog out of there, or you're going to have to go back down. Because no one wants to stay in the middle. You guys know that as Pistons guys as well. It's like the Pistons were just like the kings of the middle for a long time. And then this era happened where you get to the other side of it and it's like, this sucks too. Rather be back in the middle. Well, no, you really don't. You want to leapfrog the middle. And the way to do that is to have high-level players. And the way for the Detroit Pistons to get high-level players is through the draft. So I would preach more patience to the Pistons through this process and really let Trajan Langdon do his job. And, they just brought in a shooting coach, right? They just brought in Fred Vinson. Let him do his job. Give him a year as well to decide, can any of these guys really shoot it? Or is there enough to work with here to help these guys shoot it? Herb Jones has become such a huge success story, and a lot of it is that he's able to shoot it at a decent rate now. Shot it really well last year. Now, teams still don't guard him like he's some great shooter, but let him work with these guys a little bit.
So how do you marry the patient approach? And you mentioned 14 wins. You can't get too much worse from that point anyway. So let's just say they're starting from the bottom. How do you marry that patient approach with their $64 million in cap space? Because I think a lot of fans see that and they think they're about to go out and spend a lot of money, but obviously that could open trades. You have teams that are going to look to shed salary this offseason, so maybe you can take advantage of that. How would you approach the cap space this summer?
I would still be trying to restock the cupboard with picks if I were them. I would use this as an opportunity because of the new collective bargaining agreement and the punitive penalties against these teams. Teams are going to be calling Detroit hey, can you help us out? We'll give the Thunder picked up a lot of their picks just because they were willing to just take in other people's stuff that they didn't want. They have this pick that's lingering with the Jazz right now because they took on Derek Favors. That's a pick that could be very valuable, at some point. It could be the 11th or 12th pick in the draft, just for taking on a contract. If I'm Detroit, that's what I'm looking to do. because you have enough young guys, and certainly after this draft, there's going to be enough young guys to like have evaluations on and figure out, okay, who stays, who goes, who's actually good. If you're going to have that opportunity, I think I think those evaluations are so much more important than like, signing a free agent, like paying Isaiah Hartenstein, 3 years, $75 million or something. Like, it's like, he's good, but like, what if Jalen Duren just needed another year? Like, what if Jalen Duren just needed a little bit more help in like some particular areas and he just becomes unlocked? Well, now you have this very expensive center that wants to start. You have Jalen Duren. I think Isaiah Stewart's a 5. So like, you have this other guy who's probably a backup 5. Like, I think you can create some problems for yourself whenever you're trying to solve them via free agency. I think the Rockets, although like they've gotten a lot better, like they're going to create some problems with themselves with what they've done, because like some of these young guys aren't going to be able to have the space to grow. If you're the Pistons, like I think you grant yourself a little bit of time. And so I would try to acquire draft picks, acquire interesting young player like Quentin Grimes. I think is like a really interesting young player still. Like acquire players like that maybe have not the highest opinion of, that people have the highest opinion of across the league, and see if you can develop them too. But as far as like overpaying guys to come to Detroit, I just don't think. I think that's just a ticket to the middle, and I think it's where you want to stay away from, moving forward. That's strictly my opinion. That's also, I've seen it work here in Oklahoma City twice. It doesn't always work. You're not guaranteed anything going this strategy, but I think giving yourself more bites at the apple with draft picks, and then that's a way to use your cap space where you can remain patient.
I want to ask this then, because I completely hear what you're saying and agree with it definitely up to an extent. But I do think the thing is, I don't think they can win 14 games again next season. And well, I mean, they can, but I think
they shouldn't.
They should try not to.
Yeah.
How would you balance, I guess, getting better while not, like, I think that's towing a line there. You know what I mean? You have to put some better pieces around Cade, because I also think part of why some people don't know what to think about Cade even and how good he can be is they were like the worst 3-point shooting team in the league last year, and they turned it over at the worst rate in the league, and they didn't defend. I think my thing is, when I've talked about going, like, just getting some pieces that make sense, Andrew. So I understand we don't need to go all in and trade for this guy and overpay for this guy and overpay for that guy and trade the number 5 pick and all of that. But I do think improvement and growth and talent acquisition is important this offseason. Would you agree with that? Or would you kind of just say, hey, let's continue to roll with these young guys and just figure it out? Like, do you think there's a balance there, a line there somewhere?
Yeah, I think you find role players that help accentuate what these guys do. I think if you think that Asar Thompson is one of your key guys for this team, I think you have to acquire shooting. Like, you just don't have an option. Like, if that is one of your guys, which he totally could be, I think Asar has a lot of potential. But if he's one of your guys and Cade is one of your guys, I think you have to find shooting. I think you have to find shooting that can stay on the court defensively as well, which is tough to find, which costs a lot of money. And that may be a way that you upgrade at the draft, is that you bring in guys that can shoot and defend a little bit. I would just be leery of acquiring, like you guys have talked a little bit about Brandon Ingram. He's a huge talent upgrade for the Pistons. He helps the Pistons a lot. I would just be afraid that if it's Cade and BI, and those are your best players, one, I don't know that that's a super friendly place for Asar to fit. And then two, I just think like that's like to me, that's a ticket to like maybe like competing for the play-in spot. And then like how much better are you going to be from there? It would take Cade like jumping, like making a huge leap, which could happen. But I would worry that that's a ticket to the middle. You know what I mean?
So I just have a quick question, and Omar, I know you got one too. So my thing with even BI and some of these guys that I've warmed up to a little bit, Andrew, is I do think this team needs a bucket getter on the team, because I feel like what's being asked of some of these guys is they're being asked to play in roles on offense that are above what they should be. Like Asar Thompson should be the 5th option on the floor on the offensive end. And so we continue to ask guys the team continues to ask guys to be in roles they're not capable of and don't think they can be successful. And so I don't know that BI is the answer. I've said this about Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is the idea of what I think makes sense, but with the injuries and the contract and all of that. So would you agree that, hey, maybe bringing in a bucket getter like that, floor spacing makes sense? Or would you say, hey, Jaden Ivey, step up to the plate, or somebody else step up to the plate and be that number 2 option? What would you like to see? Do you think that would cap them from what they could potentially grow into?
It could definitely cap them from where they could go. Because also, like, you want to give Jaden Ivey the reps, like
Sure.
the on-ball reps, to figure out who he is. So much of this just goes back to like the coaching. To me, it's like what is a Pistons offense?
Are you asking, or was that for the
My bad.
a lot of Cade Cunningham?
It's like there's not a lot of offense with a 14-win team in general, so it's kind of tough to say. Like, there's what they're trying to do and then what they actually do. But they turned the ball over so much last season and shot it so poorly that I don't know how to describe a Pistons offense. It wasn't really that functional.
I will say it wasn't the 0.5 offense that we all got really excited about last offseason when the hire was made. And to your point, I think some of that is coaching. I think to a point that is also some of your personnel has to fit that type of offense also.
Yeah, that's a problem. Is like you can develop these things with any of the players. These guys are good. All these guys, if you make it to the NBA, you are a good enough basketball player to be taught how to play within an offense and a defense. And you are good enough to figure it out. Now, you can still be way over your skis, and you'll see those things. Like the Thunder saw that with Lou Dort. Throughout the rebuild, Lou Dort had the ball too much in his hands. But you still saw, like, here's what the Thunder want to accomplish. And they were never as bad as they were supposed to be because they had an offense and a defense in place. And it's pretty much been the same since Mark Daigneault was named head coach. And they've been trying to do the same principles have been there the whole time. And it just gets better with better players inserted. And then like you were talking about, guys get put in their place. Lou Dort was put in the exact right role this past year. His usage is lower than it's been since he was a rookie. Basically just taking open threes, drives to the rack that are wide open, and he is like just a crazy dog defender. Like that's what he does. Before, man, he would shoot pull-ups. He was doing all kinds of stuff that you were just like, oh man, this is just not his game, and you could see it. But it worked enough because like they had something in place. Like they had a dribble drive system in place that just, you're like, okay, I can see it. This is working for some of these guys. It made guys better than they were. I think one of the reasons that Isaiah Joe has done so well with the Thunder is because there's a system in place that just makes sense and it just fits the way that he plays. Same with a guy like Aaron Wiggins. Like I don't know that it's a guarantee that Aaron Wiggins is just like a player existing on another roster and like he's as good as people think he is. I think the Thunder's the Thunder system has made him look better than he truly is. And so it's those questions that I have for the Pistons where it's like, yeah, there's been a lot of problems with what's happened with the drafts and free agency and all those things. Like, yeah, there's been issues, but to me, it all exists from the top down. And like, if you can't solve these issues, with the top, it takes such great talent to overcome incompetence from the top. The talent level that you have to overcome that is like super duper star level. Like guys that are top 5 level guys can overcome it. Regular NBA guys typically can't overcome dysfunction that exists. And so like that's where I just keep going back to that. It's like, are they going to solve the coaching problem? Are they going to establish a better coaching system? Is Fred Vincent going to help the shooting? Is like there's just so many questions that I have at the top level where it's hard to even get to the players at times.
No doubt. A lot of questions with this Pistons team. When we come back with segment 2, we're going to dive directly into the Monty Williams situation. All right, we are back with segment 2, and you've mentioned Monty a couple times here, and obviously that's probably one of the biggest questions for the team coming into this summer. I guess when you watch and have watched the Pistons, what's stood out about the coaching, and what do you want to see change next season, regardless of if Monty returns or goes elsewhere?
I think he's not as invested in these young guys as he needs to be. in my opinion, in developing them and making an offense and a defense that makes sense for them, and just like giving them like the freedom to become who they're supposed to be. I think there's a part of that too that exists, especially with Jaden Ivey. Like it's unclear. The opinions on Jaden Ivey are all over the map. Like you ask like 10 people across the league, what do you think about Jaden Ivey? Some people are going to say, I think Jaden Ivey is not an NBA player. Some people think like, oh, this guy just needs more on-ball reps. He's going to figure this out. I always look at the Jordan Poole example from Golden State, where they had their 1 year where they were terrible. Everybody got hurt. Steph broke his hand. Jordan Poole got to become who he is today. And I know who he is today is not great, but he became a championship level player and a guy who helped them win a title because he had that year to kind of just spread his wings and become who he became a helpful player. Now, I know Jordan Poole's a weird example because it kind of got off the rails, but the reason that he even became a helpful player at all is because he was able to spread his wings for that 1 year. I just don't feel like Jaden's got that chance. Do you guys agree with that at all? Like that's kind of like been one of the biggest problems for me.
I would say that he got it his rookie year because Cade was out, and then they almost clipped his wings, if we want to stay with this reference, in this past season. And then we saw a completely different version. I don't know. That was kind of how I feel on it, Omari.
Yeah, he kind of had a seesaw season. He came in coming off of the bench. Killian was starting. And his numbers were actually, it's odd because when you look at his numbers, his efficiency fell off after All-Star weekend, and they were pretty good beforehand. But he was also playing far fewer minutes than you would look at the roster and expect a guy like him would get. So a bit of a mixed bag, but absolutely not the role you would expect for a former top 5 pick.
Yeah. To me, it's that kind of like unexpected. Like, what is he supposed to expect? Does he know where the Pistons stand on him? Does he know where their belief in him is? Like, those are questions that I would have about Jaden, because I think we know about Cade, and like people worry about Cade. Cade's about to get. Is he going to get the 5-year max? Are they going to give him the 5-year max?
Yeah, I mean, I would assume you can't play around with that, right? Like I've said that. If you don't believe in Cade to give him that, then you might as well just blow this whole thing up and start completely over. Like, let's just start all over. I feel like they're at the point with Cade. You don't mess around with it. You're hitched to him, and you hope he's really good.
I mean, and when we talk about like worrying about Cade, if you give him the 5-year max, I'd look at him straight in the eye and say, dude, you have not earned this. You have not proven anything in this league, but we are still going to give you this max because we believe in what is projectable for you. And like, I don't think that you can worry from there about like him wanting out or whatever. Like you give him the max, like you're on a 5-year max. Like we're not trading you. Like we believe that you're one of the cornerstones, and I don't think you have to worry about that. Now is like, now you have to figure everything else out, which is the struggle. And like, I think part of the problem too is that Troy didn't find guys that fit all that great around Cade. I think that it's funny because he probably won the draft, for several years, or people walked away as like, who won the draft? Well, it's the Detroit Pistons. Look what they did with this pick and this pick and this pick. We know we love what they did in the draft. I think the year that they drafted Ivy and Duren, and I mean, I think that everybody's like, oh my gosh, look what Detroit did. You win the draft, but at the same time, like, you get to this side, it's like, okay, do these guys really fit together? Is this really something where we're really trying to compliment him? I think like that's where the problem is. And it's also where the problem lies in like not really having an offensive system. What are we? What are the Detroit Pistons? Because when you say like, hey, we're looking for a Pistons player in the draft, what does that mean? Does that have a meaning? Do people even say that?
No. Well, I don't know. I don't think so, Omari. I know the Thunder are the easiest team to talk about, right? And I know we keep referencing them, but it's dribble past you. And Omari, I'll let you get in. But one thing that's kind of clicked with me as you've talked about this is even if Monty just forced the 0.5 offense on everybody on the team, well, then you would be able to tell who's good at it and who's not. Even that would be, okay, J.I., can you make the quick decisions? Can you knock down the shots when they're there? Can you attack the closeouts? Jalen Duren, are you as good of a passer as we thought? So, on down the line. And then the guys that are developing and getting better and good enough will stick out, and the guys that aren't, don't. And then you would know to move on from them. But I feel like right now, Omari, we just don't even have those answers. So I guess, and we'll transition to the draft here in just a second, but I don't have a vision of what a Pistons player looks like. And now that we're changing the front office, it's even less. As YouTube user says, hopefully Langdon sets that direction moving forward, Omari.
No doubt. Yeah, like we talked about, I guess, quote unquote, a Weaver player. And a lot of times it was just, long guys who can defend, but that didn't really materialize. And that's what I'm curious to figure out. It's just how much would the Pistons kind of follow what the Pelicans have done, where they've taken guys who had really great defensive tools. They've had to prove that they could shoot. But obviously Herb Jones has been, as you mentioned, Andrew, a huge success for them. Jose Alvarado has been good. Najee Marshall, obviously Murphy. I think all those guys come from a similar mode of, playing both sides of the floor, having left. So if the Pistons can hone in on that aspect, then that's exactly what you would want around Cade, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And just like up the level of like competitiveness too. I know that's like a really hard thing to measure, but that's something that I think the teams that really get it, like that's some of the secret sauce of like having a team that's really good. Like Alvarado's like a great example of that. Didn't have to expend like a very, big asset to get him, but he came in. The competitive nature of that guy just kind of changes the way that they play, in a lot of ways. So I think he's going to help. I think that he's been able to find guys toward the bottom of the draft that have been helpful. And so and that's where I think you need to acquire more draft picks too, is when you're only picking once, there's no margin for error. Like you have to hit. And so to me, if you can get more draft picks moving forward, I mean, even if you can trade the 5th pick and get like a later pick and a future pick, like that's something that I would certainly consider if I'm the Pistons, just so that you could have more bites at the apple in a draft that I think is really flat, where if a team at like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is willing to trade up and give you their pick in the future or give you a future pick that has some upside, I would probably bite on that because I think you can get a good player in that 9, 10, 11 range. And then you give yourself a chance, especially if it's in 25 or 26. I just think that's where you maybe start to find some value and things start to roll a little bit, is that you can have more bites at the apple. And then like no one knows who's going to hit and who's not. Like nobody knows. That's the tough thing with the draft. It's like no one has any clue who's going to be the guy, especially in this upcoming draft. So you just have to like give yourself more rolls of the dice, like eventually you're going to hit.
All right, I want to catch up on a few comments here, and then I do want to get into the draft, and we're going to ask you who your guy is, even though we don't even know really, and we're all just kind of, grabbing for straws here. Pistons Talk says it's fair to say we consider a Pistons player stuck in the past with the defensive-minded. The league is offensive-driven now. We did see a little bit of change. I think Robert Canfield brings up an interesting point. Pacers had a good strategy. Now, whether you want to say it's good or not, I think this year it played out good, but they had a strategy. We're going to be really good on offense, even if there's defensive flaws. Like you knew there was a vision there. And then my guy, Big Dog Pistons, coming at Omari. I don't know how I feel about this, even though I giggled a little bit. Wouldn't be Pistons Pulse without an Omari, no doubt. We all have our little verbal, we say the same thing. Somebody tweeted at me and I said, at the end of the day, like 5 times in 5 minutes on Game Theory the other day or whatever. So we all have him, Omari.
As long as it's not like, I think I'm good. Everybody's going to have some deflection that they go back to, but I can make no doubt my catchphrase. I'm cool with that.
I love it.
It's a good catchphrase.
Kyle brings up a good point, because I do agree with this, and it doesn't mean, like, it just means we were all wrong. He said, I do think there's a lot of revisionist history happening right now. Everyone was screaming BPA. Now we're killing Troy for the guys not working together. I do think there is some fairness to that. At the end of the day, I do think there is some of that. So I wanted to shout that out. But we're going to get to Sheet or Sham no matter what. We won't talk draft at all, because we're definitely playing Sheet or Sham. So let's get to...
Bryce is trying to redeem himself.
I know I'm not going to redeem myself. I will say this. I'll save it for when we get there.
That's a reverse jinx.
NBA draft. Andrew, regardless of the Pistons for right now, who is you? There's a lot of my guy, our guy, whatever stuff going on right now. This is the time of the year for that. Who is your guy or your guys in this draft that you just like? It doesn't mean you think they're the best player. We all understand how this works.
One of my guys is Jared McCain. I think that guys that he has his personality is so fun, and I think engaging to his teammates. I think those guys are so helpful and he's going to be a role player kind of guard that's like a combo guard, and the dude can just flat out shoot it. I love that, and he's a combo guard, so he can help out with the ball handling a little bit. He's a decent passer. if you can just flat out shoot the ball, I think that you're gonna find a place in this league. And he's strong too. He's 20 years old. He's got some weight to him. Whereas like a lot of these guys that are 20 years old just really don't. Like I think did he weigh heavier than Ron Holland? Like I think he weighed a little bit heavier than Ron Holland, which like shows me that like this guy's got some girth to him, and I like that. I like guards that can shoot it, that are tough, and you and Vicini have talked about this, and I've talked to people that know McCain well too, that he just is going to impact the locker room in a positive way no matter what. Like this is just one of those guys that comes in and he brings light with him wherever he goes.
McCain was 203. Holland came in right under 197. So you're talking about a 6-pound difference.
Yeah, and like it's just kind of whatever, but it to me is notable whenever you look at Ron Holland, you're like, oh my gosh, like this dude is like an NBA player. Like you can see it. You know, he's like almost 6'8", strong, can jump out of the gym. And McCain's like, oh, he's a small guard. He's 6'3", doesn't have very long arms, but he's strong. Like he's just built and he's strong. And so like I like those aspects of McCain, and I love the shooting. I think that, I mean, he's honestly a guy that if you're Detroit, you definitely don't draft him at 5. But if you were willing to trade back and get assets in the future, he'd be somebody that I would consider, because I really like the fit of a guy like that next to Cade, that is like a for sure floor spacer. That's a positive leader type of, you know, player that I think could help. I think honestly, you could plug McCain in anywhere. You know, it didn't really matter what roster. So I really like him. I love Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle is I kind of have a type in the draft where if you have decent size and you can pass and you defend, like I just love those guys. I just think those guys make it work in the league. They don't work on every team. He's not going to be good for everybody. But I think if he finds the right spot, I think he could be amazing. I think if the Spurs find some way to get Stephon Castle, boy, like I just think there's something there. If he can find a place where they have a stretch big and they can play a little bit more free-flowing style, I think he's going to be awesome. So those are probably my 2 favorites. I'm with Vicini too, unlike Bub Carrington. I love the pull-up game from Bub, and just love having a guy named Bub on my team.
I was going to say, I like his name. Like, he would be a top 10 pick for me just off name alone.
Well, I think what's amazing, and maybe you brought this up whenever I was with you and Fred, was then his actual first name is Carlton. So it's just amazing. Like everything about his name is... He's
also the third. So you could go with Carlton Carrington the third, which is amazing. Or just Bub Carrington, which is also amazing.
It's a great name. And he can really play. You know, a fit for Castle that I've warmed up to a little bit is Charlotte. Now, they don't have the stretch big, but him in between Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball, I kind of like. So, Omari, what draft questions do you have for Andrew?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So the Pistons, we've talked about this a lot on the pod, but at number 5, it's very likely that your top prospect could be a guy that you have positional overlap at, whether it's Donovan Clingan or really just him and Reed Shepherd, I guess, compared to the other guys up there. For you, I guess, how much does fit factor in at all for you? And if you had to sort of rank your top 5 on the board specific to the Pistons, what would that look like?
Take Sarr and Risa out. This is kind of how we play it in the Pistons community, is that Sarr and Risa are not going to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah. My view is that when you stink, there's no fit issues. You know, it just doesn't matter. Like you just need to get guys in that can play, especially when it comes to the draft. You know, and so with that, I have Reed Shepherd number 1 for the Pistons. They just need shooting. Like they just need shooting. This guy can really shoot the basketball. And with Cade offers you some interesting versatility because of his size, where you could go a little bit smaller with the other guard. I just like the idea of just getting an elite shooter next to him. So I have him there. On the other side, I have Castle, who I think could really... this is a fit that I don't love for Castle because it's adding like another questionable shooter to the mix. And this is where like the evaluations are so crucial, where it's like, okay, we brought in Fred Vinson. We feel confident that he can be a good spot-up shooter. If you feel comfortable with that, I'd probably put him at the top of the list. I only probably have him at number 2 just because I just really believe in the competitive nature of Castle, and I like the defense, I like the passing. But if you get him in a workout and you have Fred Vinson's eyes on him, and he's like, you better stay away, because I just don't think you can play. I mean, it would just be making Cade's life so hard. It's like, okay, now we're going to invest a ton in Steph Castle and in Asar Thompson and in Jalen Duren. It's like, oh man, like everything gets much harder if like none of those guys shoot.
Not to mention J.I., who hasn't necessarily proven consistently that he can space the floor either. Yeah, that one is strictly based upon can we get a good evaluation on his jumper? What's the staff's evaluation on his jumper is tough. I have Dalton Connect at 3, adds shooting, a little bit more size than Shepherd. He's a little older, but just a guy that can flat out get a bucket. You talked about getting somebody that could just go out and score. I think he does that, and he does it from a position where you're not getting a lot of scoring in general. So I think that to me makes some sense. 4, I have Ron Holland. I think Ron Holland could be the best player in the draft if everything goes well for him. He's got like the size and strength that's unlike anybody in the draft. The athleticism. Oh, I'm giving you a thumbs up there. He defensive. Do the double thumbs up so we can get the fireworks.
How about this one? You guys know this one?
I don't know this one.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Anyways, Ron Holland. I just think like he's an upside play where it's just, hey, listen, sorry you had a great year. That's great. We actually believe in the potential of Ron Holland on the wing a little bit more, and like to be like the second guy. That's also strictly, evaluation. And then have you guys been seeing like the Cody Williams stuff to the Pistons?
Yeah. What do you make of that? Because it's like on paper he has the tools, but I feel like there's a disconnect between the numbers and kind of how people talk about him.
Yeah. I think it's a little rich at 5 for him. But if you he was efficient, from 3. If you think that that's projectable, he's got good length. He comes from a great family. There's a lot of things to like about Cody Williams. Not only that his brother's in the NBA, but like there's just like a lot of good intel about his mom and dad and like just the way that they function growing up. I think like there's some good stuff there for him. And then I just think that if you can get a wing that can shoot, pass, and dribble, that is probably projects more of a role player, I think that's fine. I actually think like I have him 5th because I just think that like Shepherd, Castle, Connect, Holland, like all have a little bit more easily projectable upside, where it's like, yeah, if one of those guys became the second best player of the Pistons, like I wouldn't be totally floored by that. If Cody did, I'd be a little surprised by that. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I would be a little bit. Like he has the tools. It's just low volume shooter. The playmaking was there in flashes, but I just feel like he's probably more of a project to some of the guys who are over him, especially if we look at guys like Reed and Castle, who probably have day one skills.
I mean, for me, it's YouTube user brings it up, and somebody else said,
that too.
Says Cody played much of the season injured. Like that's what I've had people tell me. I'm being too hard on him because of that I need to give him a little more leeway. My thing goes back to I wasn't a huge Cody Williams guy coming out of high school. When I evaluated the high school tape, I wasn't as high as other people. He actually moved up my board throughout the season still. Like I didn't love him as a lottery pick, even though he was a 5-star prospect. And so that's why I have pushed back just a little bit on putting him in my top 5 or whatever. I still have him very much as a lottery pick. And you kind of mentioned it, Andrew, if they traded back, then cool. Like I'm okay. You get a future draft asset in Cody Williams. I can live with that outcome, especially with who I think probably is going to be there at 5 with Reese Shea off the board, obviously Alex Sarr and those guys. So it will be interesting. We're just over a week away. But like I said, I want to play Sheet or Sham because I want to have some laughs. I want to enjoy this. I'm excited for what Wes came up with. So we're going to go to a short break. When we come back, we'll bring Wes in and we'll play some trivia with the trivia guy himself, Andrew Schlecht.
All right, we are back with segment 3, and we're going to bring in Wes, whose camera is operational after some technical difficulties last week. It's good to see you for the first time in 2 weeks, Wes.
Yeah, you guys were telling me I think I was a chatbot, right? I was OpenAI. Wasn't actually there. I was there.
Yeah.
I was there.
I don't know if it was you. I'm not convinced. It's very easy to like fake voices now. Like it's scary easy. If I don't see you, I just don't trust it if I don't see you.
Fair enough. Well, you can trust me now. Although Bryce, you always say we're in cahoots for this game, but we're not. Look, we all know the rules, but I'll go back through them. This is a true or false game. Right out of the standings, Bryce, you've got 5 wins. Omari, you've got 6 wins. Andrew, for you, so Sheed is true. Sham is false. I'm going to read out a stat or some piece of trivia. You guys have to pick. I will keep track of the score, and it's winner take all. So for our listeners, if Andrew wins, Bryce and Omari get no points. So it will still be 6-5 Omari. Obviously, if one of those two wins, it could either be a tie or we could go 7-5 Omari. But I'll go to Bryce. You first. This one is about Malik Monk and Jaden Ivey. So Sheed or Sham, Malik Monk and Jaden Ivey both average 25 points per 100 possessions in their second seasons in the league.
Wait, what's the question? That was a lot of caveats there. It was like this many points and this many possessions in this year in the league. I got lost.
Year 2 for both Malik Monk and Jaden Ivey.
Year 2. Okay, so
25 points per 100 possessions. Both of them.
I will say Sham. We all answer every question, Andrew, so we'll go around the horn here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to go Sheed.
Okay, so I'm Sham, Omari, Sheed, Andrew.
I'll go Sheed.
Okay. I hope I'm right. This would be an awesome start to the game.
It's Sheed. So you're wrong. Unfortunately, and I did, so this was one of the few that I didn't go on the technicality. So Monk was at 25.2, Ivy was 25.7, but the full stat line is Malik Monk. This was again per 100 possessions, 25.2 points, 5.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He slashed 39, 33, 88. Jaden Ivey was 25.7 points, 5.7 rebounds, 6.4 assists on 43, 34, 75. So very similar between the two of them in year 2.
Excellent trivia for the Jaden Ivey Ivy crowd.
Made the question. Like you probably came up with this one.
Wow, I would never do that. What makes you think I'm a guy coming up with trivia questions in my spare time?
I just know you guys cheat. That's how I know. That's all I know.
That's not true. So Andrew's also in on the charade here.
For all I know, probably.
Hey,
we'll see.
Never know.
Yeah.
All right. What's the next one?
All right, Omari, I will go to you first. Sheed or Sham, Asar Thompson averaged more stocks per 100 possessions. I was on a per 100 possessions kick. So again, per 100. So. Asar Thompson averaged more stocks per 100 than Herb Jones did in his rookie year. Sheed or Sham?
Sheed. I'm going to go Sheed.
Oh, then Herb Jones did. What?
Rookie
possessions thing.
Rookie
Really?
seasons.
Rookie seasons. Okay. So he averaged more per 100 possessions. Is that what you're saying?
That is the question. What?
Okay. I will say that is Sheed.
So what'd you say, Omari?
I said Sheed.
And you both said Sheed. Okay, so I have to go Sham. Like just strategically to try and win the game, I'm going to go Sham. Wes is laughing. This is going to suck.
Well, I'm laughing because on the last one, I didn't do the rounding thing to get a technicality. Well, on this one, I did. So, Bryce, you were right. It was Sham. Herb Jones was at 4 stocks per 100 and Asar Thompson 3.9. So, again, very, very close.
Very close.
Very close.
Wow.
Okay.
Wes loves this. Wes's thing is the very minuscule differences. So you really got to get into the weeds on some of these, but it's good. So we're 1-1, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we are.
You have for all the listeners, if you're not watching, like Wes has the hardest job of anything we do on the podcast because he's taking notes right now, reading the questions, keeping score, taking notes when we misspeak to send to the audio producers after. Wes is crushing it right now. So make sure.
This is Bryce trying to butter Wes up so he can win.
Really is.
Yeah, now Bryce we're in cahoots, I guess, right?
Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, Wes has been with me for 3 years. If he should be cheating for anybody, it should be me. I mean,
I agree. Like that's the logical assumption.
But we all know that's not what happens. So I can't be a nice guy anymore. That's what you're saying. I can't give people compliments. This isn't my personality. Like I'm not a nice guy that gives people compliments.
No, you are. Like for sure.
Thank you. So you know what you just said was false. Okay, Andrew's up.
Well, my next thing is, whatever I say next will be true. Go ahead, Wes. Let's go.
So you're going to say she to the next answer no matter what?
I'm going to get it right.
Cap.
Well, real quick before we do you guys want to talk at all about, Malik Monk, who's a free agent, potentially being similar to Jaden Ivey, and then, the Asar Thompson, Herb Jones potential comparison as well?
What's happening in the chat right now? Did I miss something? What's Butterball, Blue Bonnet? I'm confused.
I have no idea.
Malik Monk. Sorry. Squirrel. Andrew, thoughts on Malik Monk? So this is a guy that Pistons fans talk a lot about. It fits into what I said earlier about at least giving them somebody that can really get buckets and space the floor. Is there a world where you see Malik Monk making sense, even if you just give the caveat of at a certain price?
I don't think the Pistons have enough of a foundation for Malik to be somebody that comes in and makes a giant difference for them. And we have literally seen Malik Monk in situations that aren't so great before, and people haven't thought very much of him. I mean, that's what led to him getting to the Lakers and then finally having a good year and then getting paid. And like now he's about to get paid more because he's been on a good team that has like this good structure, foundation. They know what, the Kings know exactly what they're doing. And to throw him back on a team to be like, okay, Malik Monk, come and fix our issues. Like, I don't think Malik Monk is going to fix the issues of the Pistons. I would rather figure out if Jaden Ivey can be that guy than pay Malik Monk to play minutes over Jaden Ivey and still not know what Jaden Ivey is, and also confirm to yourself that Malik Monk is not the savior of the Detroit Pistons. You know what I mean?
No, it makes it. Listen, this is why I love doing this, is because you're bringing perspectives that like we don't always give, the side of the coin, and your outside perspective is different than us having to watch this every day and wanting to see it get better. So I love it because I'm a huge Malik Monk buy. So I get kind of jaded by, I think he'd be fun to watch. But I think what you're bringing up makes a lot of sense. Dax Hoop says 100% agrees. So, all right, Wes, question 3, I think we'll lead with Andrew.
Yes, sir, we will. So, Andrew, this one's coming to you first. Sheed or Sham, the Detroit Pistons had a record of 2-17 for games that were 2 or more days of rest. So we could really just say they only won 2 games when they got 2 or more days of rest. Sheed or Sham?
Oh, gosh. It's either 2 or 1, right? No, I would say that is Sheed.
So the statement is the Pistons only won 2 games this season when they had 2 or more days of rest.
That is correct.
This better be Sham.
I was actually going to go Sheed because for one, I thought, well, how many games
you're overthinking
you have
it.
after
This
2 days?
This is what you do.
Do you have after 2? And that's why I'm in the lead, because I really think he's screwed. Like I was like, how many days of like 2-day rest do you have in the middle of the season? It's like not a lot. And they won 14 games, and they only won 1 game, from the start of the season until Christmas, basically. So I'm going to go Sheed.
Hold on real quick. Before you tell the answer, I love that PD Mac is doing what Omari does. PD Mac says it's too long of a question. He's not critiquing Wes for making too long of a question. He's saying it's too long of a question to be Sheed. And that's what I love, is that our listeners now have their strategies in how they're answering these questions. So I was Sham and you both were only Sheed, or you both were Sheed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is the answer, Wes?
Shockingly, it's Sheed. That is true. Like the best that the Pistons performed in any rest segment was actually on back-to-backs, where they were 5 and 10. So they won 5 games on back-to-back. Don't know how that happened.
Yours is probably.
I think it has to be a Mac.
I want to do what Andrew did.
You have to get your finger up.
Try to do it. I think my mic is in the way.
No, it's a setting on your MacBook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Mac setting. I was recording with Sam, I think, and I gave double thumbs up or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe the double P, one of the two. And all of a sudden fireworks were going off. I was like, what is going on? So Omari, if you click on your camera up in the top right-hand corner, there's a reactions thing, and then you can toggle it on or off.
Bryce, that happened to me in an interview just last week. I was just doing hand gestures. It gave me the thumbs up on Zoom, and I'm like, all right, did I do that? Is something wrong? Because I was having all the tech issues already. I was freaking out.
So what the score is: Omari 2, Andrew 2, I'm at 1. Sharon Dalton, who is playing along here, says that they have 2. PD Max says his logic is destroyed. So, all right, we question number 4.
All right, Bryce, we'll go back to you with this one. I really liked this one, so hopefully you get this one right. Sheed or Sham, Walker Kessler averaged more blocks per game then Donovan Clingan averaged blocks per 40 minutes in their final years in college. So that's both their sophomore years, most recent for Clingan, and then the year before he got drafted for Kessler. So for context, I'll give you some context.
Repeat that one more time.
Yeah. All right. Walker Kessler averaged more blocks per game than Donovan Clingan averaged blocks per 40 minutes. All right. And for context, Clingan played 22 minutes a game and Kessler only 25. So they're pretty close.
I'm going to say Sheed only because I remember that like Kessler was historically good the shot blocking numbers were historically good, like insanely good. So I'm going to say Sheed.
It's Walker Kessler averaged more blocks per game than Clingan per 40 minutes.
Correct. In college.
In college.
Obviously.
I'm going Sham.
Obviously. Their last year in college. So I'm Sheed, Omari Sham. Andrew looks frustrated.
This one broke my brain. I'll say Sham.
Shockingly, it was Sheed. So Donovan Clingan per 40 minutes was 4.4. Kessler per game, 4.6. That was nuts.
Yeah, it was historic shot blocking numbers for Walker Kessler at Auburn. So we're back to a 3-way tie at 2, I believe. Is that
yes,
correct?
we are. Yep.
Will J says, wow, good grief. Okay. Hey, this is the most engagement we've got from the chat in this. You must have come up with some really good ones, Wes. So
the engagement, the Cahoots allegations are not holding up because not even trying to, me and Andrew have had the same answers and we are tied with Bryce. So there you have it.
Yeah, it's amazing that you haven't got all 4 right. You play it very well. You string me along until the end. I'm sure it'll.
That's because I play it honestly.
Okay. All right, let's get 2 more in here, and we'll see where we're at. So,
all right, so I've got one more and a bonus question, which we'll give anyway, but this next one will be the last one. I was a bad game show host, though. I forgot to mention our phone the chat feature that we could do. So, Andrew, well, obviously, Omari, Bryce, you guys as well. If you're really stumped, you can say, I'm going to phone the chat and then see what the people in our comments think the answer is. And then either take that
nobody Google. You have to use your own.
Yeah, no Googling. And of course,
we're going with the honest
get
system.
Tons of engagement on it too. And I was bad and I forgot. So that's my bad. But that is something
you can Google and just try to trick us. Like that's also an option.
It's true. You could.
I mean, the chat has been split 50-50 on most of them anyway. So
yeah. Well, all right. So Omari, this one's going to you first. Sheed or Sham, in his year 3 season, Jay Gilgeous-Alexander averaged more assists per game than Cade Cunningham. This was a good one for
in his year 3 season.
What?
In his year 3 season, I'm going to go Sham.
In Shay's year 3. Okay.
We're going per game, right? Like not like per average, per 40 or... Okay.
Yeah. I believe
Sham.
Yeah, I believe this is also Sham.
I actually also was going to say Sham. Everybody is going Sham.
It's Sham.
I hope it's... Okay.
It was Sham. I thought I'd get Andrew an easy one here and maybe trick you two, but it didn't turn out that way.
This is funny because this season there was a controversy amongst the Thunder community, and I don't know if it was in the locker room or not, but they were saying that Josh Giddey was going to be the one to handle the ball primarily at one point during that season. And we asked Shea about it after one of the games, and he told us that this is not his plan A. And so, like, the plan A game was pretty interesting. And then Shea, like within like a week, got shut down, and the Thunder tanked their way to another draft pick. But during that season, that was the not my plan A season, and that obviously changed pretty quickly.
He didn't realize his own powers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's like another like lesson of like impatience a little bit, because even in year 3, and no one really knew that Shea was going to be this good, like no clue that he was going to be this good. And so there's still time for like guys like Cade to make like these massive leaps as he continues to play, because like no one thought Shea was going to, I mean, no one thought, if you were told somebody like during that season, like Shea's going to be like a top 20 player in the league, you'd be like, man, that's crazy. Like, I don't know if he's actually going to get there.
And he was top 5 this year.
He's top 5 this year. Yeah.
All right, Wes, how are we breaking the tie here? How is this going to go down?
I have a bonus question.
Okay.
So this hopefully will break the tie, but I'll need you guys to not answer the same way. So we'll go to Andrew first, just to let you guys think about it. But here's our bonus question. So, Sheet or Sham, Jalen Duren averaged more stocks per game than Isaiah Stewart.
Last season?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay. So Jalen Duren was the one who you're saying averaged more per game. This is
more
not per
stocks per game, just straight up. Yep.
Straight up per game.
Yep.
Okay. Jalen Duren averaged more. I think that's Sheed.
Sham. Please go Sheed. Please go Sheed. Omari.
No, of course, Sham.
No, go Sheed.
I'm going Sham.
And then you and Andrew can break the tie over there, or I can just win outright. So we have to. So either Andrew's going to win, or me and Omari got to figure out a tiebreaker, right?
Oh my gosh.
Or we can carry it over to next week. There is a lot of shams. There's a lot of shams.
I got to answer with my heart. That's true.
The chat is making me feel very bad.
Yeah, I got to answer with my heart. That's true.
Wes.
Andrew, you should be feeling very good. This was actually Sheed.
No.
Jalen Duren 1.3 stocks. Isaiah Stewart 1.2.
Wow.
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Andrew defeated the Pistons post.
Wow. I feel so good right now.
Nah.
So here's what I'm trying to figure out now: is my performance on the Athletic NBA show worse, or the fact that Andrew came on here and beat me on my own show? I don't know. I was more worried about that, and then this happened.
I was confident about that one too.
I was confident about that too.
You guys had me immediately worried, wanting to change my answer. Wow.
That means you have to host our pod next week. We lost our privileges to the pod.
I mean, here the thing is, it's not because Duren's stocks are so good. I think everybody knew Duren's stocks were low.
Yeah.
I don't think I realized that Stu's stocks were that low as well.
Because Stu is a better shot blocker.
Yeah.
It was more so the steals that I had no clue about. But just because Duren, I think, averaged like 0.8 blocks.
What are the numbers? Like, what are the
So Duren was 0.5 steals and 0.8 blocks. Stu was 0.4 steals and 0.8 blocks. And it was actually in almost 2 extra minutes.
Wow. That is wild.
Yeah, YouTube user says minutes. It's not that. There's way more games for Duren. 15
It's more games, and it's also the fact that Isaiah is the superior shot blocker, but he played more minutes at the 4 than the 5.
Sure.
So he wasn't in a position to
probably on the perimeter more.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's look at the previous season. If we do this, Duren was 1.6. No, Stu doesn't disrupt as much as I would have guessed, to be honest with you. His blocks have gone down instantly, essentially every year in the NBA. Interesting.
Yeah, I think his percentage is around the same. Though I'm gonna check. I know we're almost out of time. I'm gonna check cleaning the glass real quick and see if his percentage is a little bit higher.
I feel like I've seen some good, like, protecting the rim in general numbers, but yeah man, good for you, Andrew.
Yeah. No, he had a 3.1 block percentage as a rookie, and it was 1.3 last year. Yeah, but he's just declined every single year for whatever reason.
Interesting. All right, Andrew comes in, knocks off the Pistons pulse crew, wins. I mean, at the end of the day, Wes did ask him an SGA question, so I feel like he kind of threw it his way a little bit. Here's the thing. I cheated whenever I went on his. I looked up all of the nicknames for the Pistons roster going into the episode because I knew they like to do. Do you have that question handy, Andrew, or no?
Yeah, I can pull it up pretty quick.
Okay, Ari and Wes, I want you guys to answer this one. This one is pretty good. If for all the listeners, you guys can play along as well. If you don't listen to the Athletic NBA show, you should. And on Slam and Jam, you would know that they do their either Andrew versus the Bee or now Fred versus a friend. And a lot of times they'll ask about nicknames on Basketball Reference. So going into when Andrew graciously asked me to join him and Fred, I did a little bit of research on Pistons nicknames. And this was one of the questions I actually got right. So if you got it teed up.
The number 2 overall pick in the 2020 draft, James Wiseman, has 5 nicknames on Basketball Reference. I'm going to give you 4 nicknames. One of them is not a Basketball Reference nickname for James Wiseman. Now pay attention. Slim Jim, Jimmy Wise, Big Ticket, or Big Jim. That's Slim Jim, Jimmy Wise, Big Ticket, or Big Jim.
Andrew, you're such a pro. You changed character for this so perfectly. I love it.
Yeah, in full game show host mode.
I love it.
PD Max says big ticket. That's his answer.
I'm going Slim
And this
Jim.
is the one that's not a nickname.
The one that's not officially on Basketball Reference as a nickname.
I'm going to go with Slim Jim.
Oh my.
What'd you say, Wes?
Slim Jim as well.
Slim Jim is correct. Very good, you guys.
All right, that's
Could
cool.
not trick you.
I knew
Fred's reaction to big ticket actually being a nickname was amazing.
That's really funny.
It's like, really, we're going to give this guy the big ticket nickname. So, all right. I appreciate you going there with that, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us. We definitely need to have you back. Maybe after the offseason plays out and all of that, you can come back and we can talk about what actually went down and what we see moving forward and all of that. So before you go, before we end this, just let everybody know where they can find you, follow you, listen to you, and all the podcast stuff you do.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew K. Schlecht. You can go to The Athletic. You can listen to The Athletic NBA show. That would be great. I think we're going to have James Edwards on this week. So look out for that. And then if you want Thunder content, you can listen to Down to Dunk. We have a lot of fun over there on our YouTube page and then just on a podcast feed. So go check those out. And if you're just crazy enough and you want to pay to listen to me do a podcast, you can check out the OKC Dream Team at patreon.com/OKC Dream Team.
Andrew, such a pleasure to have you on. We'll definitely try to get you on later this summer to recap whatever the Pistons do, because they're probably going to be one of the more active teams one way or another. And with that, I'll close this out. Big thanks to our audio producer, Robert Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and big shout out to Wes Davenport, as always. And we'll talk to you all next week.